Hey, everybody, this is Jeanette coming to you out of Tampa, and we are back for a third What is the Ask conversation where Black folks are coming together before this November 8th election. And what we're talking about are things that are important to Black citizens in the United States. The question is, if you are going to vote, and we hope all of you do, what are you asking for? And are you using that vote to secure, um, are you using that vote to secure things for the Black community? This is something that we never really do or think about, to come together and ask for things that are pretty specific. Well, real quick, today's topic is Black folks and gun control, gun violence. So we're going to talk a little bit about the historical background as we understand it, gun ownership in America. We're going to talk a little bit about that culture, the white fear behind Black gun ownership. Also, the statistics, past and present. Who owns guns? It's really funny. I looked at the four of us on the panel tonight, and of the four, three owns a gun, and one has never owned a gun. I won't tell you who that is. And then there's the rise in gun ownership, especially since the pandemic. These are things that we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about it from our own perspective, just like regular citizens. So hopefully you'll find some interest in our discussion tonight. And I want to remind you, there is a chat that's going on in the social. And if you are listening to us tonight, feel free to weigh in on any of the issues that we have. All right, so our guests tonight, I'm going to let them quickly introduce themselves, because we've got Tampa represented here tonight, myself, Jeanette Bradley, and Mona. Mona, why don't you introduce yourself, also from Tampa?
Hello, Mona Judge, Tampa, Florida, born and raised.
Born and raised, she says. All right. And then we've got Atlanta represented in the House, another critical state Georgia is. And these two gentlemen are coming to us right out of Atlanta. Alton, what's up?
Hello, Alton Drew, coming out of Atlanta. Good evening. Great to be here.
All right. And Albert Fields.
Yep, I am in Atlanta now, by way of Tampa, by way of St. Louis, by way of my hometown, Chattanooga. And there's more, by way of where I was born in Iowa, okay? So how about that?
All right. Well, if we're talking about where we were born, I was born in New York, upstate Watertown.
See, there you go.
Lived everywhere, but Tampa is really home, and that's where my people are, actually. So Black folks and gun control and gun violence. We kind of touch on this every single week when I get to what is the ask. A lot of you guys like to talk about police reform, but it touches into what's going on with guns in America, and why is it historically that Black folks don't seem to be into the gun ownership, or am I wrong? That one of the four that has never owned a gun. Anybody?
Well, my granddaddy used to say, if you go to a gun battle, don't bring a knife, okay? You got to bring whatever's on the table and be ready to take care of what it is that you need to do. So it has always been a part of our family that somebody in there had a way of protecting the family.
Yeah.
I think coming out of slavery, it probably wasn't looked upon that we had guns, but I'm sure somewhere in the 50s, when you look at Malcolm X, every time they would come to bomb the house, people had guns. So what happened? I grew up with my uncle, my mom's brother. He had guns. He was a gun lover. He was in the military. He had a case of guns. We grew up hunting, fishing, all of those American things. So I don't know what happened. And because my mom was in business, probably like in 78, she was allowed to have a concealed weapon, and so we've always had a gun.
Yeah. I think we had a gun when I was a child, and this is just a memory, maybe a glimpse that I had of it in my dad's closet that we just saw one day when they were not at home. And so we knew we had a gun, but we never had any interaction with that gun at all. Alton, what's your experience?
Yeah, I used to shoot on a rifle and pistol team when I was in at FAMU in Navy ROTC. So that's where I was introduced. And I shot a couple other times on other ranges in Tallahassee. But when I lived in Maryland, my son was born. I guess he was around maybe 1 or 2. We moved out of the city of Frederick into the county, a lot of horse country and not well lit. So some friends who helped me move over there, they recommended, they said, Drew, you better get yourself something while you're out here. You get some protection. So when I bought a shotgun and never used it, but I have it.
If you had one because you felt you needed that protection. But historically, Black people and guns have always been seen as a negative for Black. For white people and guns, not so much. Where does that come from? Where the norm is a white group or group of men, let's say, with a gun can walk around here and everybody's allowing that to happen. But as soon as you see Black folks walking around, open carry, whatever they want to call it, we got the militia out and everybody, not the militia, but we've got the armed forces out and everybody's up in a roar. Why is it not the norm for Black people to own guns to, as you said, protect yourselves, your property, your businesses, your families, what have you? Why is that not the norm in America? And is it becoming the norm?
Well, first off, if you look at the history, Black people were not considered citizens, and they were passing laws based upon what citizens could do. There's a legal definition for citizens, and they kept us out of that role well into the 1800s. And all of the codes said we had no business having guns, even though you had people along the freedom trails, they carried guns with them. Harriet Tubman always had a gun with her, and a large other population also. I think when we started moving down into Florida, because, you know, Black folks were really the ones who moved into Florida as Seminoles, but that's another discussion. They were called Seminoles because they were runaways out of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And so they took up arms there. And as Indians from other tribes or Native Americans like the Cherokees and all that moved in, they blended together. And so they began to use guns and artillery that way down in Florida because Spain let them do it. But once you moved across that border, you know, it was back to business as usual. White folks had the guns and Black folks didn't.
Yeah, white folks had the guns and Black folks didn't. And that's pretty much what my mentality says, that they've got the guns, we don't. And when we had it, like the Black Panthers, when they said, you know, we can carry guns just like you can, everybody got nervous.
Well, you know, that was the first time that the NRA came out as against guns.
Yes, I know.
The National Rifle Association in 1968 said, whoa, hold on, Home Slice. We are not in favor of everybody carrying a gun, you know, because the Black Panthers could read just like everybody else, and they read the law and it said we can carry guns. So you got that as a backdrop for another rule. So they always tried to find legal ways to keep us from being in a position to protect ourselves. It's like the African saying is that when the lion starts carrying a gun or start writing history, then or carrying a gun, then history is going to change. In other words, when we didn't have guns and they had guns, we were just like an animal being hunted most times. But the minute we could shoot back, you know, that would change up quite a bit. That would change the history quite a bit.
I would add to that too. The technology of weaponry represents to Europeans, you know, one of the mechanisms they use to spread out and to conquer and to take. So no other group on this continent is supposed to possess that type of technology. That's what that gun represents. And then there are all the other adages that come along with gun ownership for whites. Their rugged independence, their liberty, and all that other nonsense. But liberty, independence, those are words of power. So that kind of philosophy definitely should not apply or be embraced by blacks. So we discourage the use of that technology because it represents dominance. And we don't want this small group of people dominating our space. So
well, think about this. That's let's turn to the current day. Biden, for instance. Biden right now is pushing law and order, and he's using the phrase safety in the community. That's those dog whistles that the Republicans always use. Well, in fact, Biden and Bill Clinton both used it back in the 90s as dog whistles to say we need to pass laws to lock up black and brown. And even though he came back and apologized, well, yeah, whenever you get caught, that's the first thing you do is apologize. That didn't change anything because his attitude, you can see from 1990, if he really was serious about apologizing, then he would have in 2022, he would not be pushing for the same kind of laws he pushed for back in 1992.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that Biden did not do, and that is apologize to Black folks for those stringent gun laws and the policies of the Clinton administration, if you will. But Mona, any thoughts on that? Can you hear me, Mona?
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. Say it again.
Yeah, I said, any thoughts on what we were just talking about with regard to Biden and his inability or lack of apology?
Two things. Let me come back to that. But I think the most part where blacks don't do guns because I believe maybe in the 60s and the 70s we did, but it's our religion. God's going to take care of us. It's unsafe. Sometimes this European Christian religion has harmed us, has not made us who our true African self. And I hear that from people, they'll say, oh, you have kids in the house. Now, when you say you found your father's gun and he hadn't showed it to you guys, you shouldn't have never been able to find the gun. So sometimes we are a little careless. I've had a gun here. I've raised my daughter. Never knew where the gun was. Now the gun isn't really, I don't even know why I have it, because somebody break in, it's in a safe. How quickly can I get to it? You see what I'm saying? Now, even my uncle, when I say he had them in a showcase, but he had the thing locked. So it was just a habit because it is your right, and you have to. We all need it. Go back to Biden.
Yeah, go back. Go back, Mona. Talk about Biden.
Go ahead.
So it is one of the reasons I was really pushing against his president, only because of his laws and things of that, and the laws that he put in place, and just the pure hate. I viewed so many videos of him in the Senate talking about he didn't give a damn about the criminals. He didn't want his mother, his grandmother, his children abducted by black gangsters and all of this, and he wanted them locked up. And the laws that he put in place are still harming black people today. And if he really was sorry, I don't want to hear, I apologize or I'm sorry. I want to see some action. We could do this police reform that we put him in office to really do. And now he's toning it down or walking it back. He doesn't want to do that. So it's a lot of things. And you guys are thinking, a lot of you guys are thinking he's doing an excellent job. I heard someone, I can't remember who, saying he is the best president. He believes he's the best president. Some black guy. I just heard this on the news.
I didn't say it. It's like,
no.
Record as I know as soon as I say something, Mona or you, Albert, will jump on me on Facebook. I didn't say it.
And I'm thinking it's Travis. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it's crazy.
I think Biden is. I think he's also, and this is where Senator Booker and of course the reason for his weakness was because he's running for president. He was running for president.
Yes.
But Biden is signaling to the GOP that one, he believes the probability of him losing the Congress is higher than some people think. So he has to move. He has to put out the dog whistles throughout that red meat to the right to say, yeah, remember Dick Nixon? Well, I'm his second coming. So I can put, I can talk the law and order nonsense from the late 60s just in case my party loses. And I've always said that Biden wants his party to lose at least one chamber this fall. If they lost both chambers, he'd be happy because it puts him exactly where he wants to be, where he can show more of his true colors, yes, but where he can act like the politician that he is, which is he's going to ride. He's going to ride the right when he has to. He'll placate the left. He's going to tell blacks to F off. He's already been saying that from before he even got inaugurated. And now he can be firmer in that, knowing that he can ease to the right and get a little comfort. And if he does plan to run in 2024, he's already occupying the center because he can play that side of the chamber and ride into the White House in 2024 as the law and order president, Richard Nixon redo. So that's where he's coming from.
Well, he just recently used that F-bomb. He said, fund the police, not defund the police. Right. So he's calling for another 100,000 policemen. But all this killing and all the deaths that we're having out in the black community, he's wanting to put more police out here with what he's calling protecting the community. But so protecting what community?
Val Demings is saying the same thing. So I think Val Demings here in Florida for Senator replaced Rubio. He's saying the exact same thing. And to Alton's point, it's time for them to say that so they can call in some of those moderate Democrats to come on over and feel comfortable with them and put them in office. But Biden just met about 2 days ago with the Black leadership, right? And they sat down with Biden and said, and here's what we want. Now, it wasn't all that clear because as they gave their little summary interviews, it was way too general for the Black community. And as usual, what they asked for is, if you take care of Blacks, you kind of take care of everybody. So we just want to save democracy. That's the main thing. Save our voting rights so we can save democracy. But there was nothing real specific to the Black population. And these were strong hitters like Derek Johnson, president of NAACP. You had Maya Wiley, as she ran for governor of New York. Damon, I think Hewitt, these were people that were actually our leaders, not really asking for anything from the president. What, 90 or less than 90 days before an election, and we're not asking for anything.
But I think as long as we believe that we're either Democrats or Republicans, then that is definitely going to hold us back in our thinking. Because just like if you're a Blood or a Crip, you got to go along with what the Blood or the Crips leader has to say, even if you don't agree with them. And when you start picking up the elephant on the donkey and saying that's my character that I got to carry around, that means that you got to go along with a crazy policy. Right now, black people to me would be crazy for two reasons. If we all did not start getting guns, and if we all started saying bring more police in our community, because history will show us that every time that they police our community, we die a whole lot faster than the other community does. And when I say get a gun, I don't mean just go out and buy one and do like some of these guys do, don't know how to carry it, accidentally shooting themselves. I'm saying like get with some training, get organized. I ran into a group here. It was the National African American Gun Association, and began to talk to them. They have classes, they have events where they talk about safety. They even go out and talk to the kids about safety and how you carry a gun, you know? And so that's the kind of thing that we need to do as black folks, instead of us being only 25% with guns and 75% sitting there like it was in Buffalo when that guy knew that we didn't have any guns, he could go in there and kill us. We need to do the opposite and learn how to use that equipment in the defense of our community.
Yeah, I think part of the rise in gun sales after the pandemic was that black people were arming themselves. I don't have the stats behind that. That's my guess is more of us are arming ourselves rather than being sitting ducks.
Yeah, I was in a sports a sporting goods store maybe 2-3 weeks ago with a friend, and she's looking at bikes, so I'm just walking around, and I go to the back, and they've got this gun case, some, I'll say it, some beautiful looking handguns, and I'll say it again. I was jacked. I was like, wow, because she was talking about buying a weapon for the longest. I said, hey, look, you need to come back and take a look at this. I mean, it's like on some great prices. I'm not gonna say who it was before to say this guy's a pitch man, but the people buying, I would say, let's say there were 10 people shopping, 7 were black. So which kind of surprised me, but then the surprise went away, and I was like, good, I need to join these brothers and get me another weapon. But I think there's another brother on Twitter, Maj Torre, I believe his name is, a big gun ownership proponent, going to Albert's point. It really pushes education on when it comes to defending yourself, arming yourself, making sure you're responsible with that weapon. It's doable, and we need to get. If there's a fear out there about having weapons, we need to get rid of it, because and to tie it into these so-called leaders, I skimmed that report and I just started to laugh and cringe, because these leaders will be the last ones to tell us that we need to defend ourselves. They'd rather say, oh, Zaddy, take care of us, which is what they were doing at this conference. The same old guys, Morial and of course Sharpton and a couple of
same guys.
Yeah, making the same arguments, and then going back 59 years ago, the March on Washington, asking for the same stuff, not realizing that some itineration of you was there. So if I'm looking at 59 years ago and you guys were there, and now you're asking the same question, and you are the leadership, you're failures. You need to sit down, move aside. What you're doing does not work. You're failures.
Yeah. Hey guys, but I get a gun. I'm walking around with a gun. Maybe the police are called and I've got my gun to protect myself. Police show up. I got a gun. I'm black, so I get shot. Is there a fear in the black community that holding a gun and a white policeman or black policeman, they put on that hat, they become something else, that you were accused of having a gun even when we've got Skittles in our pockets? So holding a gun as a black person can be illegal.
Jeanette, let me be clear.
All
The
right.
fact that I got black skin, I'm worried about getting shot by police. It ain't got nothing to do with a gun. I could be walking around naked, as there was a guy in Chicago walking down the street half naked, and the police thought he walked up on him and they shot him. You know, there's no evidence that the gun actually made them be afraid. It is the fact that we are black skin, and therefore we need to like circle so that nobody can get inside our circle, and we need to protect ourselves from that circle. You know, in the old cowboy days, for those who remember those, they would circle the wagon train and they would shoot out at those supposedly coming in at them. Our problem today is our young boys have turned those guns inside the wagon train and they're shooting each other. And all I want them to do is come to an organized process, learn how to handle those guns, and then turn them in the right direction for our protection. Ooh, that rhymed that time. Okay.
Yeah, but is there a tendency that our brothers don't have legal guns? I mean, are they holding, you know?
There's going to have
talking about go ahead.
There's going to have to be some a lot of engagement with law enforcement. Going to your point about the guys who may have the illegal weapons, I put them on the back burner for now and focus on saying to these cops and these, especially in these larger cities where you got more than 1 or 2 blacks on the city council. It's like, look, you're on the city council. You guys are not protecting us. We're stepping it up a notch. Yeah, we know we got to get these weapons and get registered and what have you. And, you know, back in the 80s when we were in school, they were talking about, oh, community policing. Well, the way they approach community policing isn't working. The real community policing is when blacks go into Albert's Point, circle that wagon, and we let the cops know that, yo, when you show up, you're still going to be accountable and liable for pulling out a weapon and shooting somebody who's got a legal weapon. So we need to start working on protocols that are going to apply to you, so you reduce that probability to near zero, because we have a right to carry these weapons. And just because you roll up on a black person who's carrying a gun doesn't make it a free-for-all for you. I'm not going to say hope, but professionalism would say that you roll up, you had all this information before you came on this call as to who's causing a fuss, the descriptions and all of that. So if Alton Drew 5'11" with a license to carry a .45 and he has it in his holster, and you're looking for a guy 6'5", I would think your sense will kick in and say, that's not the guy. Now, and I raised that from personal experience in Tallahassee, having been stopped by cops at least 6 or 7 times for just walking, when they're looking for a guy we're looking for a guy who's 6 foot, blah, blah. And you say, and they're pulling you over, or they're stopping me when I'm walking, not realizing that the inability to use your sense turns me into someone who's adverse to you. You know why? Because that very same son of a bitch that you're looking for, I did see him. But because you're stupid, I'm not going to help you. So you need to exercise, the cops need to exercise professionalism. You don't roll up on anybody that you're not looking for and you shoot them. So that has to be worked out. But the main issue is, do we protect ourselves? Yes. Do we need permission to protect ourselves? That Constitution says no. And these so-called black representatives, I live in the what district am I? I'm in the West End, in the 5th district. Jason Dozier is our city council rep. If he's listening, yo, we have a right to protect ourselves. And you as a black man, you as a black woman, you as a black male mayor, Mr. Dickens, all you guys need to show a little guts and say, you know, we're gonna go a step further for our people. Yeah, our white constituents won't like it, but they're just gonna have to deal with it until election year. These people need protection, but that also means you need political leaders with some guts. But That's another discussion. We don't have that.
Definitely another discussion. You know, we've been compared the United States to places like Japan and others that don't seem to have the issue because they don't allow. I mean, their gun control is such that it's really hard for folks to get a gun. And that seems to be the opposite. And the floodgates seem to be opening here in the United States. And it sounds like that's what we're also reporting for. Should we be limiting gun ownership rather than?
No.
We would never do that.
Let me give you some working news.
With white America.
Question. Okay, go ahead. Either
Go
one.
ahead, Mona.
We would never be able to do that as long as Black America is in America. As long as Blacks are in America, white people aren't going to ever give up their guns. It's just now if they were all white, and so you could say the difference in these countries because the majority, everybody there, is Chinese, Japanese. You know, it is here. We got the melting pot, and so yeah, it is. It's not going to happen. And the people, the Black leaders who tell us not to have guns, they all got guns.
Jeanette, let me add something else.
Everybody I know have a gun.
Yeah.
Just yesterday in Canada, 2 brothers went on a stabbing spree. They used knives and they must have stabbed 11 people. You go to England where guns are very, very, very rare. Guess what? Violence is still up and they're using knives also. So it's not the gun that we need to legislate. We need to figure out a way to get rid of the attitude of violence. And they're 2 different things. You know.
Okay. The attitude of violence.
Yeah. And that's as American as. Yeah.
But we're calling it, especially when it's these mass murders, we're calling it mental health. Is it the attitude of violence? Or are we talking about mental health? Because the
I'm talking about the American dream. Apple pie, a bomb, and a gun. That's where you start in America, okay? You might play baseball somewhere in there, but when you get right down to it, when America decides that you are in opposition, what's the first thing they do? They go bomb. No, here's the first thing they do. They make up a lie, then they go bomb you, okay? So their position is always violence is the answer to solve any problem. And so once you know that, it's just like playing football. You don't have a choice. You better put on a helmet when you go out on that field, because if you don't, you're going to get hurt. And if their attitude is violence when you step out there, you better be in a defensive posture at least to protect yourself against that violence. And so guns will help us as opposed to hurt us. Get rid of violence. You don't have to worry about the gun.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're not getting rid of violence.
Yeah, America was built on violence. I mean, the United States is I'll just put it out. The United States is the basura de mundo. It's the garbage can of the world. You look at the US's history. Those monarchs sent over the worst of the worst,
right,
to this hemisphere.
Well, why don't we know that? Why are we romanticizing these people?
Yes, Black people, especially some of my brothers and sisters in the Virgin Islands where I'm from, they just remote. Oh, the United States is blah blah. No, read the history, read the charters. That's one thing about this society. They do not hide their history. You just have to go and sit down and read it. And when I'm one day, real quickly, I'm reading the charter that the king gave to Lord Calvert or Lord whatever, Baltimore in Maryland. And he said, go over there, Christianize the savages. If they don't get Christianized, kill them. And all that land is yours. That's the bottom line. It's about 3 pages long, but that's the summary.
Genocide of the Indians, yeah.
Yes. And even and there's a court case, 1823, where the Chief Justice says, look, we came here, we recognize these people as human, but they were less than us. but we recognize them, but we let them know, come, do things our way, or else you get wiped out. I mean, he says that. It's written.
It is
1823 is not a long time ago. It's not. It's in the DNA. It's carried in the DNA. So that, going to Mona's point, that's where the violence is not going anywhere. It's built on violence. What is this? This is what, September? In November, they're going to be celebrating the violence on Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. In next May, they're going to celebrate the violence. Memorial Day. They celebrate violence. Some of the best made movies in America involve violence. The Godfather. You can name a whole bunch of them. It's all about Bonnie and Clyde. Warren Beatty did such a great job. And what? In Scooby-Doo? No, Bonnie and Clyde. Violence. That's what this country's built on. And why? Because these Europeans inherited it, the attitude, the philosophy, and their genetic makeup from violent people. So it's not going anywhere. They're gonna look at their wealth and say, but it worked for us. What, you're gonna give that up now and have peace and bring it and show love to all these other different people? Then we're gonna lose our power, dominance, and capital. It's not gonna happen. Not in our lifetimes.
Here's a Facebook comment, Jeanette. Somebody wrote in there should be better quality controls on who gets guns, or there should be the decision so that not how many guns you got. In other words, they should have more stringent, rules to keep folks from getting guns.
Well, don't they have stringent rules in place?
They do it. It never worked. Only if we start getting them, and they're supposed to have them. You see white people right now getting them, young white boys getting them, people with mental health getting them. Yeah, it'll never work because they'll go to the
think about this, Jeanette.
You see the parents, Wittenhauer, you see the parents getting the guns for the kids that don't qualify.
You can't do that. You can't do that legally. You can't do that legally.
Except what was his name? Kyle
Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse.
Got it.
Well, he
killed him and got his gun back afterwards.
So
and got off.
It wasn't a rule. Yeah. Okay, so here's my thinking. When George Bush said that somebody tried to kill his daddy, what was his answer? He took his guns and he went over to where Saddam was and he blew him out the water.
Yeah.
I mean, he's supposed to be a sane guy. So stringent rules to keep people from having the ability to use the gun doesn't help. You see, once again, if you got a problem and you only diagnose the symptom, one of the symptoms, I got runny nose, that may not help you with COVID. If you got runny eyes, that may not help you. You got to understand what the real problem, the underlying case is, and then you got to go after that as a doctor to cure the ailment as opposed to just mask the symptoms. And that's all you're doing when you put in, but now you got to wait 3 days to get a gun.
Yeah.
Shoot. That ain't gonna change.
And Alton, you make an excellent point to take us back to 1823 and probably before that, in terms of who came to this country and what they were charged to do to take it away from the indigenous people, and then the violence of even the slavery, the slaves, and the violence of even the Jim Crow era that was allowed to happen by the government, and the violence that continues to happen. But here's the thing. In my thinking, and this is my thinking that's influenced by white America, the most violent people, I'm looking at the hierarchy, are Black men at the bottom. That's what this country tells us every single day, is to be afraid of Black men. Just be afraid. They're going to rape your women and whatever else. Where even Black people are afraid of Black men, right? But based on what everybody is saying here, the most violent people in America are white men.
It's white men.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah. Always been.
And if you watch the crime shows on TV, all of them,
Mhm.
Every last one of them.
Yep. Yep.
Law and Order,
Yes.
99.8% of the crimes that they try to solve are white men. Criminal
Mhm.
Minds,
Yep.
99.8% of the crimes they are solving are white men. You name it. Give me
So-
any one of them. How in the world is it that Black men are the ones that everybody thinks are the criminals and are the most violent? Why?
If I control the propaganda, if I control the information that you consume every day, then
Yes.
I bet you. And see, Horace Mann is considered the father of education. Go back and look. I'm like Alton. I started reading up on him. He was a horrible dude. He said, get them young, get them early, and you don't have to worry about what they'll do when they get older. So
Yeah.
they train us. They tell us that we're going to be bad. We are bad. We're inherently bad. And even if we're not, if you're not careful, you'll fall prey to the lies told about you every day.
And that's what happens. That is exactly what happens.
When was the last time you said white on white crime? When was the last time you said that? Or have you ever said, look at the white on white crime?
I say it all the time.
I say it all the time now, Albert, because they make such a big deal. And I say when, black on black crime, people kill each other who's in the vicinity of each other.
Yes.
So, yes, we're going to kill each other because we all live together, and they kill each other. But if we look at the news, or if they will air the stuff that goes on in Tampa, even in my little area where I live, and they stopped putting it in the paper. We used to have this paper when we first moved out here. I live in Wesley Chapel. And I used to be like, oh my God, but the crazy stuff that goes on out here every day, but it never makes the news. So Albert's correct. Those who control the propaganda, they get to write that lyric. And that is what, and like when we have Europeans coming over or foreigners coming over, and they think black people are a certain way only because they saw it on TV.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and Alton, you can speak to this. But even our African or Caribbean or West Indian brothers and sisters kind of think we're a little violent, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but they also think we're kind of unruly because TV, even though the crime shows are all white people killing each other, somehow that narrative that Albert talks about is what rules the day, and there's no evidence really.
Yeah, I think in fairness, the narrative that Caribbeans buy into when it comes to blacks here is more in line with is more in the economic space or the social space. Coming up, I never had a discussion back home where anyone back home said, oh, blacks are violent. No. And for me personally, I definitely couldn't say that because I go to Crown Heights and half of Brooklyn is related to me, right? In other words, I got Black American cousins. So it's like, I know better, right? So what the narrative, and this is a little off topic, but back in. So long story short, the narrative, yes, is created in the media, okay? Especially for people back home who don't get up here often or who don't get up here at all. So it is coming from the media as to how blacks are perceived, but I think it ends at, blacks are violent. No. There are other narratives that we buy into that are bullshit. But that one, no, I've never heard that one. And even today, amongst my friends now, as we've gotten older, you never hear that. I can't speak to what the family from Africa, how they view, but the Caribbean, no. So we don't feed into that narrative.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment and that experience that you have. But sometimes I go into the chats, a lot of different chats, and one of the chats is when we're talking about reparations, and then I look at the comments of in terms of who gets what and who gets locked out. The comments are just extremely revealing, and a lot of it is economic, just like you said, in
Yeah.
terms of Black laziness and what have you. Always asking for something, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Yeah, and let me address that one real quick, because yes, there are a whole bunch of us who spout that nonsense, and I'll just say this real quick. You know, Jeanette and I go back almost as long as I've been in the country. I'll tell any Caribbean or African who's up here and they're a bunch who talk that nonsense, I'll say, look, Blacks here are more resilient than we ever would be, for one very simple reason. Blacks here were on their own with next to nothing. Okay, what do I mean by that? When you have no access to capital, when you own less than 2% of the land, when you got the modern police force that was started here in 1836 in Ferguson, Missouri, that came out of the slave patrols, and they're hunting you down. Don't come up here talking about, oh, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Blacks here have been pulling, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke. I'm almost 60 years old. I don't give a shit. Blacks here have been pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps from almost day one. There's no way Blacks could survive here without pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps.
Preach.
It's impossible. Whereas if you're from, and I may piss off some people out there from the continent, I don't care. Here goes. You're over there sitting on your own land, okay? And you got everybody around the world telling you that you're a shithole country. Lithuania could take out Nigeria in a week. Lithuania. Why is that? I could easily say that you have misappropriated your own capital. When the head of your country, the head of state, is still the queen, you have problems, not the people here. So you need to get off of that nonsense. Okay, you have capital, you have land, and you have not. Africa. Now again, just touching it for 20 seconds. Africa should be the most kick-ass continent on the planet. Accra.
Yes.
If the world went back to the gold standard, which half of this planet is going back to, and that's another thing Blacks need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
If the world went back to a gold standard, Accra would all of a sudden be rivaling London, because Ghana's sitting on all that gold.
Yeah.
But no,
once again, but see, if you look at the history of that, Alton, you'll understand that just like we were educated under an English attitude, most of the continent was educated under a European attitude, either France, Italy, England, all those guys, Belgium, all those guys indoctrinated. So, and they even co-opted it. If I can just get one of you guys, I tell you what, Jeanette, I'm gonna give you the $1 million to keep everybody else down.
that's right.
That's basically what happened in there. You know, my concern, and I'm going to bring it back home about this guns in the community. If you hear this concept of community policing, you better stop and think very hard. Do you want more police in your neighborhood? And this is what Biden is pushing for the coming year. Community policing is another phrase, just like you hear collateral damage. It sounds innocent, but collateral damage means that I just killed you for no reason. You had no business dying, but that's the way it goes. Community policing is another one of those phrases, and what it means is we're going to occupy you. We're going to stop you. Remember Amadou Diallo? That was under community policing in New York City. You see, do you remember that? Yeah. And those police were having a field day, having fun. And so here we come back around. What is it, 1992 to 2022? What is that, about 30, 40 years, whatever it is? I can't add that fast. But either way, here comes Biden again with the same garbage he put out in 1992. He's coming back around in 2022 to get the people back to the point of stopping us frisking us,
Yes.
taking us down and back to those jails. So
2011 in the West End,
yeah.
Albert. 2011. One day I'm just minding my business. All of a sudden, all these cops stopping people for no reason. The Gestapo was out. And then within a couple years, you saw the neighborhood's complexion, and I mean that literally, start to change. Why? Because and to add to Albert's point, community policing, they're like the damn shock troops that Hitler sent to September 1 to Poland, September 1, 1939. You go in, you occupy, you harass the residents, and you run them out, and then you replace them. I saw it with my own eyes. That's what community policing means. It should not mean that.
Yeah, but the indicators that Biden is getting from going back to the Black leadership is that safety is key. It's important. Yes, we want police accountability, but our communities need to be safe. Now, that is saying we want community policing, but they're not trying to describe exactly what that means. And community policing, is it just Black and brown neighborhoods, or are those same policemen going to be trolling the streets in neighborhoods?
They are not going to Buckhead.
I tell you what, go look at your history. You know where they're going.
We know where they're going.
Yeah, you go look at your history. You know East End. When I live right there, right off of Martin Luther King, and I was down in the center. What was that? Martin Luther King and Florida Avenue, right in that area, somewhere like that. And remember when that Seminole killer was there, and they would ride up and down our streets on horses. They were patrolling with the intent of catching this guy. You see, but at the same time, I got stopped walking my dogs. They want to know what I was doing walking on that particular street. Nebraska Avenue. I was at the corner of ML King in Nebraska. That's where I live. I live right off that corner. And they stopped me several times. I had a routine every morning. I walk my dogs. So here I am. You think I'm going to be out killing somebody walking around with 3 dogs? I'm doing my best to keep them under control. But that's what community policing did. I had to show ID. I had to tell why I wasn't on the street that I lived on. And so I'm just saying, if people start talking to you about community policing, man, I'm saying you better open your eyes, because it never bodes well for our community.
No.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like in Tampa, they're not going to ask the community. They go to a certain group of people, and we're having it right now. Saying that we need community police. And when you get in the inner city, you see nothing but cops. I mean, cops everywhere. And they just do a circle around major areas inside of East Tampa. I could get off the interstate on Bruce B. Downs and come to my house, and I never see a police car. Now I'm sure it's probably undercover cops, but you could go into the Walmart, not the Walmart, the Walgreens on 22nd. And I went up there one day, and here's this guy. He got a vest on, he got his AR-15, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Because I would hate to bring my 5-year-old son into this Walgreens with this. What do you need to be here like this for? And he said, and the Walgreens right across the street from my house, white boys rob it all the time, but you're never going to hear it.
No.
And the people that they get to buy.
All right.
Do y'all remember riding bicycles while Black in Tampa? Do y'all remember that?
Yes.
Jane Cass.
They're bringing it back up.
Yeah, and the mayor got hired based upon her success at stopping all those guys riding by. Yeah. That was community policing.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were putting Black guys in jail just for simply riding their bicycles.
Yeah, that's true. So now last point, Mona. What was that?
They were asking for a receipt. They was asking for a receipt for the bicycles. Now, who have a receipt?
Right.
Yeah, nobody's riding with the receipts. So I think we agree that Black people need to arm themselves legally and more families need to protect themselves and their property, especially with what's going on. We agree that that needs to happen. I think we agree that our leadership is not necessarily speaking for the community. That seems to be a theme that's going on, but November 8th is just around the corner. And I feel like the Black community hasn't come together to say, and here's what we want for the vote. If our leadership are saying that we are critical, notice women are registering to vote in droves, not necessarily Black folks, but if Black folks retreat and pull back, that would be devastating to the Democratic Party. But we won't do that. Our leadership told me that 2 days ago when they came out and talked about what they spoke about with the president. They believe they are integral to saving democracy. So Black folks are going to follow suit. So let me ask you this. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Alton, what is the ask this week?
Yes. The ask this week is all local Black leaders need to be put on notice. If you don't, I'm not talking about another committee. If you're not ready to vote for any legislation that says Blacks can arm themselves, which is legislation that says so, but if you're not willing to vote for legislation or policy that says cops, you need to work with this community. You can't go in there and do and exercise violence. If you can't give me that agenda, then I'm voting you out. However, and I am mindful, however, that you have to be careful that when you use the tools of your oppressor, they're not too favorable about that. So it's not going to be an easy ask, but that has to be the start. In other words, okay, you guys are kissing up to Biden. Well, guess what? If you're not kissing up to us, you won't be around to kiss up to anybody. So at a minimum, you will go. Don't worry about us saying, oh, we're worried about Trump. No. We're not worried about him. We're worried about you right now.
Yeah.
You need to go if you can't give us this.
Yeah, so the focus would be on our leadership.
Yes.
And challenging them. Yeah. Albert, what's up? What's the ask?
What would be my ask? Here is what I think. I'm going back to the policing and the killing of Black folk.
That's perfect. Yeah.
My buddy tells me his son drives a truck, one of those 18-wheelers, and he says anytime they're in an accident, they have to automatically take a drug test. They have to automatically take an alcohol test to find out what's in their system. And I'm saying that it is time for us to do the same thing. Anytime there's a shooting by a policeman, they should automatically be sent to have those tests done to find out what state they were in. And I think that would also help correct, or at least reduce. It ain't gonna correct, or you can't correct attitude simply by doing that, but you're gonna reduce the number of police shootings of Black folk.
I agree with that, and you're pretty consistent on your ask, and I appreciate that. But in the executive order that Biden signed recently, he does create a new national database of police misconduct. Whether that will have any teeth, whether anybody will enforce it, whether it lasts beyond an executive order, I don't know. But there is discussion out there that needs to be something Black folks push. I agree. What's the ask? We got seconds left.
So his database needs to go a little bit further. I have been following it. I do like it. I do like what Albert and Elton had said. But my ask for the next 2 months is that we got to make Black leaders, local and national, aware that if you're not right now asking these people for what the community need, not what you want, but what's best for the race as a whole, then we might need to tell them we're going to sit out, and we have to not be afraid to do it.
Yeah, we That's absolutely right. And then we've got to get our friends and family to follow suit. Mine is pretty much aligned
Yes.
with all of yours. I think the focus needs to be less on Biden and more on Black leadership. We need to teach our Black leadership to be more forceful and to ask for the things that are important to the Black community. That's what needs to happen. We need to focus on us. Because until we get
Yes.
stronger, we will sit and have those conversations with Biden and he knows there's no meat behind it. We've got to focus
Yes.
on those Black leaders who are talking out of their mouths, but really know nothing's going to happen because we're not going to stand behind it. All right, folks. Again, great conversation. Thank you so much for. I don't have a subject for next time, so we're going to have to get together and decide what's the next three conversations that we're going to have. Thanks a lot, everybody. Goodbye. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
See you later.
You
And get a
bet.
license.